right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Everyday Data, where we examine currently trending topics in data, analytics, and AI, and how they show up in our everyday lives. We're your hosts, Patricia and Zach. We're also recent graduates from NYU's MSBAI program. Doesn't roll off the tongue as well as I wanted it to. But we recently graduated from the program. We're also data and pop culture enthusiasts and big time yappers. So we love to yap, and that's what we're here to do again today. And we have a fun topic that we want to talk about. We want to talk a little bit about careers and our experiences as being recent graduates. And we have had interesting experiences after graduating. We both got new jobs. I moved up within the company that I am already in. I've been at it for 9 years in my current company, and Zach got a new job in a new company, and 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 Zach had an interesting article that he shared with me this week just around unemployment, if people are going for higher education. And we were like, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the value of higher education, how we experienced it, what we got out of it, and just our general thoughts around what's happening in the world, especially if you're considering higher education, if you're considering a career switch. We both did a career switch. So I think this is a good conversation to have right now because we all be talking about this economy and the job market is rough right now. So let's get into it. Zach, why don't you share the story?
Great. Yeah. So this is a topic we always talk about together. And yeah, it actually was the article, I think it was from this morning. So I was scrolling New York Times, as you want to do to keep up with the world. The technology section is great. And today's article in the AI section of New York Times is the newest face of long-term unemployment, the college educated. So this article by Noam Schreiber kind of paints a picture for something that, yeah, we've been experiencing and we've been discussing since we've been in the program. So we started the program in 2023, graduated in 24. So yeah, as Trishi mentioned, yeah, I started my new role the January 2nd of 2024. And so we've both gone through, you moving up in your current role. I was interviewing. We've talked to our colleagues that have been interviewing. And yeah, one of the current topics of people in the program when we graduated and keeping up with the next cohort is this the unemployment changes, and specifically like the article today called out how the college educated is the new explosion in numbers. So the long-term unemployment hit 25.7% in August 2025. And yeah, it just flips the promise, right, that we were told about college, that study hard, get a degree, and you'll get a job. And what we've seen maybe related to AI, and we'll talk about that, or just technology, changes in the tax code, which is what I've seen for why tech is laying off some the write-offs for R&D that caused, but tech in general has a big downturn, and they were one of the large growth factors post-pandemic when there was that huge hiring boom. I mean, to go, yeah, to my personal story, I graduated from my second degree, bachelor's, out of the pandemic. I got caught up in that hiring boom, which was great because I was transitioning once already during then, got swept up in tech, was having this great hiring boom, and then decided to let's further my education and got a master's at NYU, how I met Patricia, and was thinking, okay, now I'm going to pivot yet again because my career changed just in a few years because yes, tech changes really fast. And yeah, things have changed so fast. So that's what I'm seeing again in my own life, and probably you've seen or just friends you've talked to, even though you haven't done yourself in job searching, but in people you talk to, we're both sort of in careers where we do interact with students and job seekers. I work in higher ed, and it's of course undergrad. We only have two master's programs at our particular school, but we see the surge in employment, or not employment, in enrollment for colleges, and yeah, I think that's something to talk about. So, yeah, what have you seen just with your at your work, like with the people you work with?
Yeah, I work in I work like higher ed adjacent. I work for a professional association and we provide our own education. But I think in general, the conversation around higher ed is really interesting because I feel like there's two things going on. In higher ed, there's a decline in enrollments for a lot of programs. And so, these like educational institutions, and obviously I'm in Canada, here in the US. So but I think that around the world, I do think it's a global problem where these educational institutions are not seeing the enrollments that they used to see. And especially in Canada, we have this whole thing going on right now because we've limited immigration and we're not giving out student visas. And so even more, our educational institutions are struggling right now with getting even domestic students to like register for school. And like that's happening on one side, and these like institutions are trying to promote their programs saying, well, come, you can make sure you get your higher education, especially like grad level education. They're like, come get that if you want to go up in the workforce, move up, get promotions, yada yada yada. But then you see like the reality of the workforce, which I think is kind of different because when you look at job descriptions, like yes, they say it's great to have education, but it's not a requirement. They prefer you to have experience. You need to have like 5 years of experience in this, 10 years of experience in that. And so I think people are opting to, instead of going for higher education a lot of the time, just like try and get work experience because they think that they don't need the education to actually get the jobs. And also, when you're up against, like when you're someone who is educated or has many degrees, qualifications, you're expecting certain pay as well. And so these companies are also not willing to pay you that. So I think that there's this narrative that, if you're highly educated, you're not necessarily going to get hired. And clearly this is happening based on your article that like those with lots of education are not getting hired because you're also expecting so much more money. Companies aren't willing to pay that money. There's not as many people with that higher education because people are opting to just go and get experience instead. So there are people that are able to be doing your job and getting paid slightly less. Like I think there's all of these things are happening
Yeah,
in
it's
the market.
definitely multifaceted. Yeah, you can't point to just one thing, right? And I think
Yeah.
what I'm seeing, again, in my work, you work directly with students. I don't work as much with students, but I work with student data. So at least I can see the data. And that's an interesting thing you said. And I want to point out about the experience. And okay, maybe this isn't my students, but people I've talked to, people that have asked me for, oh, what was your feedback on the NYU program? Is that you talked about the experience requirement for jobs these days, that it's no longer at entry level is like 3 years of experience.
Yeah.
So you have the students who are currently in college. It's okay, how can I get a job? It's the catch-22, right? How do I get a job with no experience? How do you get experience without a job, right? Like, what are people supposed to do these days? And that's when I think a lot of people see, okay, then should I just continue my education, right? Like, should I, okay, if I can't get the experience straight out of undergrad with my, again, maybe pandemic lens of bachelor's of computer science, landing at Google, making 200K, do I go back for a master's and just kind of delay and keep studying?
Yeah. My question to you is what was your evaluation of when you were choosing to get a master's? Like, were you like, I want to pivot? Were you like, I want to continue studying. I want to do something new. Like, because I know I don't know how different the master's was from what you were working on and the kind of work that you were doing. But did you see it as a way that you could move up in your career? Did you see it as that stepping stone, or were you like, I need to do something?
Like you said, I think you hit the, we said it's multiple factors. So we're talking about this, the requirement for experience. And because we're both career switchers, we had the experience.
Hmm.
But also, I think there's, again, this is like confusing the whole thing. There's also the degree inflation. So, and maybe that's like a point of contention where on the one hand, you say, yes, you need experience, but then you're also competing with people with the experience plus an advanced degree. And I
Yeah.
think personally, what I saw was, okay, I've gotten a few years of experience, and again, this is through the pre-COVID lens, where 1 to 2 years experience was enough at that time. You only needed a couple years, and you were getting, nonstop LinkedIn messages. But it
Yeah.
was even, how do you differentiate yourself even from that pool? So everyone's got 1 year. What else can I do if we're all just, general Java programmers or C# programmers like I was at the time? Okay, if I have a master's and you specialize, right? That's supposedly the point of a master's is you're supposed to pick a specialty, not generic like an MBA, but specialize in a field.
Yeah, yeah. And that was very similar for me too, where I didn't want like I was considering between an MBA and a master's and I was like, no, like I want to specialize in a field.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because when you and I were considering getting a master's, it was a very different landscape, right? Like it was like post-pandemic because I applied in the summer of 2022. So
Yeah,
2022 was so different when we thought about
exactly.
jobs and the landscape. Also, nobody was talking about data analytics and AI the way that they are now. Like when we started, when I was applying, I was like, oh, I'm on the forefront of something that's really emerging. And by the time I'm done, like I will be a pioneer in the field. By the time we graduated, like I think by the time we started the program, GPT-4 or something had just come out and was so popular. And obviously, we all know that we all said this, ChatGPT was like our 25th member of our class or something, or 43rd member of our class. It helped us a lot, which is great. But I think that we thought that we were ahead of something as opposed to that kind of dropping right when we started the program. And then by the time we finished the program, it was a very different landscape than what it was like, what the job market was like, what how people were talking about data analytics and AI but when before we started the program. And so
Mhm.
now it's like that's all people are talking about it.
Yeah.
Everyone's an expert too because of ChatGPT. And so it's really different now when you're evaluating getting higher education because you're in an in like we're in a world where it's just so extremely competitive and it's like, do you even have the time to step back
Mhm.
and take the time to study in that way? Like I feel like that's a consideration for people.
Yeah, and I definitely think if if I had advice like maybe to myself, like I would probably tell myself now like to still do it because, and like you just said, I wouldn't take a year off for it by any means. I think you definitely would get left behind in a year.
Hmm.
But what you just said and why it might still be worth it, and this is the advice that I've given people to ask me all the time, because the way you described AI, it's changing fast. So in my mind, that goes to, again, I was a computer science for my second major, and that post-pandemic was the boot camp where everyone just, oh, just learn the tools, just learn
Yeah.
because at the time, yeah, they just need warm bodies. That post-pandemic hiring surge was, as long as
Yeah.
you had basics of programming, you were good, you were golden. And I feel that's similar to how we are now is as long as you learn the basics of AI, you could probably swindle your way, but that's changed already in 2025. And I don't know about you, but I think the value is still there for a traditional STEM degree. I wouldn't go for an AI degree, but like our program where you learn statistics, you learn the basics of
Hmm.
analytics, data visualization. It's not just about the tools, but it's the why behind the tools. Because as like the article points out, and I think you'd agree, ChatGPT, right, can do everything. That's what they in one of the stories in New York Times that they interview this guy, he's like 15 years experience as a software developer, and he says, yeah, what I used to be able to only do myself with my years of knowledge, ChatGPT can write for me now with just a
Yeah.
prompt.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not totally related, but just what you're saying about like just like how AI can is really doing a lot of the work for us. And so we have to be so strategic about what kind of decisions we're making. Jeffrey Hinton, I think feel like they call him the father of AI or something. Did you hear it? His famous quote that's like he says if you are thinking about a career, you need to go into like the trades because AI is gonna take over all of our jobs. He was like trained to be a plumber or something like that. Because you're so right. Like, how do you differentiate yourself in a world where I think the junior level jobs are being done by AI?
Mhm.
So that is where in a master's like we did, where we're thinking about high level decisions, executive level conversations and presentations, and what matters to the executive team at the end of the day. Those are the skills that people need. And that is what we learned in our master. So there's kind of an interesting, I feel, conversation around, well, what about like the technical skills? Like, is it still worth it for people to learn them or not? And to what extent should they learn them? And I have like a very interesting, like kind of strong opinion on it. So I want to hear yours first
About what
about
to
just like
learn.
how much. like how intense should individuals get into the technical skills considering
Yeah.
what you just said about, well, if AI can do it all for you?
I think that's, I get out. I'm trying to spread it in a way that's not just saying exactly what you said.
Yeah.
It's the one hand, yeah, AI can do it, and I see it myself. Like AI, like I feel like I'm losing my SQL skills because I don't
Yeah.
have to, memorize syntax anymore.
Yeah.
But you said you need to understand the context, and even if you're just prompting with the context. And I mean, ChatGPT 5 is amazing. It's
Yeah.
way better, but you still have to prompt with enough context to understand, like you said, what the business needs, what the stakeholder needs, what your objective is. It can't, just writing, build me a dashboard or write a query that gets the enrollment over 5 years.
Yeah.
You have to understand a little bit more of the context of what the query, what the prompt is to get out. So ChatGPT is cutting out the middleman and kind of making us all like, yeah, that higher level or that's the only where the value is because it can write those simple
Yeah.
queries.
I feel like what I'm seeing on this side of where I am is that there is this emphasis on you knowing SQL and you not using ChatGPT for SQL. Like I have had conversations with colleagues. I've seen just conversations with friends where now the tests that they make you do when you're applying for analytics types roles, they're like that you can't screenshot, you can't like it tells you how long, like let's say you have a test, right? As you're applying for a new job, it will tell the interviewer, the people who are looking at your test, how much time you take to write a SQL query. If you can't copy paste, you can't take screenshots, so they know if you it can even like play back how you do your work. So if a page is blank and then suddenly it's like filled with SQL query, they know that you use AI and they don't want you to use AI. And I feel like this is very interesting because we keep saying like, oh, well, you can just use ChatGPT. It's making our lives easier. It's you don't need to know SQL the same way, but then that's not what's happening when people are hiring,
So
right? Like
my
when it comes,
counterpoint is just to interrupt you on this is
yes,
would you want to work for a company that is basically going to automate you away once they do allow you to use AI? So my thought would be if I'm interviewing this place, I can't use AI, which is fair. They want you to at least have basic level skills. But if I couldn't, and that's why I think that's where I'm going with this. I think it's a flawed interview test that if I was interviewing and I was on like hiring committees, I would be having someone walk me through the logic of, okay,
yeah,
why are you building this query? What do you need for this? Because yes, I went through interview loops um, with a leak code and it sucks. But that was back in the way back in the day, post-pandemic, when you were literally writing on whiteboards and you couldn't chat
yeah,
GPT. But nowadays, again, even if you back then you could just explain the process. You could still like get through leak codes with a live person, not this. Everything's automated now, so it's changed even in my time. But
yeah,
talking through your logic, and if I again to your using your example, if I got hired at a place that would just okay, no AI anywhere, there are anti AI interviews, is that someone that's going to get automated? That seems like they're, like again, derogatory code monkey because all they can do is write code, and that's the first thing that's going to get automated.
yeah, exactly. So I'm not even seeing like so far I'm not even seeing the shift yet. And it's like we know it's coming. We're not put placing value on it
Yeah.
in the interview process, at least from what I'm seeing on this end. And also, I had another point, I forgot it. Damn it. I hate when that happens. But okay, but this why I brought all of this up is
Yeah.
because I think like as amazing as our education was and as it really does help you in the executive boardroom and when it comes to making decisions or when it comes to evaluating other people's work, I still feel like I need to do a SQL boot camp. Like,
Yeah.
I still feel like I need to go out and I still need to learn Python and I need to learn SQL because as much as we keep saying we're driven by AI as a society, I don't see that at the business level. Maybe the Deloittes of the world are doing it, but there's only so many megacorps that are out there that are at the forefront of AI and technology. I find at most companies, they're taking a while for AI adoption. So I do think education is important in that you do need to learn the technical piece as
Yeah.
well. And
So
that's for
I
me,
mean,
like I need to go and do it.
I'm gonna 100% agree with a similar reason why I agree. Because yes, I would agree that for someone like watching this, like, do I even take Python? I think it's not that AI is gonna get it wrong because I'm amazed that like it basically never gets it wrong anymore. But at the same time, you have to know the why. So again, why did it choose this kind of, structure to the code? Why did it choose a query this way and why is it wrong? To use a personal example, when I, asked a SQL query, we use an Oracle SQL and you can't do certain things in it. And ChatGPT's first example is, oh, here's this kind of code. And if I didn't know that, and if I just blindly gave it the code and it errors out, and I say, okay, it just errored out, it's gonna keep going on this thread. But because I understand a bit of SQL, I know that, oh, it's trying to do windows that our server just doesn't support. And that's the reason why it's airing out. So again, can I go about it a different way? Is there another way to do, instead of like an iterator, can I do a for loop or, use some other tool in my tool belt that was gained through like a course on just basic Python to understand the fundamentals of a Python or a SQL?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the moral of that is like yes, like you need to go and do like I feel like there's all of these like radical podcasts that are like the future of all of this is going away, but I think the reality is that it's not gone yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So while we're still here, like if you're thinking about what does my education look like yes, there's that master's aspect of it that does really help you specialize. And of course, our master's was so great at giving you a full breadth of what the space looks like. But I think what I realize is that it's just a touch, like it's just a flavor. There's still so much learning that you still have to do in terms of just like that technical aspect. Like, and there's so many topics out there, and I think that's where ChatGPT helps, is it can create a curriculum for you of your learning.
Then on that note, then I guess my question for you, because I'm curious what your thought was, is okay, then how do we know that interview process is broken, right? That I want to, explain my code. I don't want to use SQL. And that's great to say for you and I who have jobs. But okay, what advice would you give someone to get their foot in the door, right? So that's the biggest thing I see with another, again, on the topic of applying and jobs and career readiness is how do I make my resume stand out to an employer? With I've got my education, so I took your advice. I took a SQL course, I took a Python course. I list that on my resume. I have my college degree, but how do I get the interview? How do I show that I can talk to someone? What would your advice be to someone to, in this day and age, 2025, in the fall recruiting season, to get noticed on their resume if they want to go into data and analytics?
I don't believe in blind applications. So, when a company is just got up on their job portal a job description, just applying to that and calling it a day is not what's going to get people a job. Like, I really do believe it's who you know. So that application that you submit needs to be followed up with a LinkedIn message to as many people as you can find at that organization, asking for a connection to someone in HR or a connection to someone who works in that department or in that role, and you have to like it's such a long shot, but that is truly the only like networking is the only way to get your resume to stand out. That's what I truly believe. I do think like, if you have this insane resume where you have all of these stacked projects, then yeah, go ahead because you're going to have all of the keywords that you need for the application portal. But I think the reality for a lot of people is that it really does matter who you know. And I don't even think it's just in LinkedIn. I was having a career conversation with someone recently who asked me the same question, like, how do I make myself stand out? And I was like, well, who do you know? Like, what do you do in your network? And we were kind of chatting. And then she told me that she actually volunteers a ton in a space where she can be connected to a lot of individuals in different industries and different professions. And I was like, well, why aren't you hanging out with them more often? Like, why aren't you talking about what you want to do at your volunteering? And she was like, oh, I didn't think about that. And I was like, yeah, like you are already connected to a pretty vast network. Like somebody there is going to know somebody
Yep.
or is going to think of you. Like you have to make it known to individuals that you're looking and start reaching out to your network. And we learned about this in actually one of our network analytics courses. Like it's always that like random connection that
Recommend
ends
connection.
up,
Yeah. Yep.
right? Like connecting you to this whole other group or this opportunity or this person. And
Yeah.
so I do think it is all in networking. And I think that there's an art to networking. Maybe we should do a session on that one day. Because I think for like people in AI, data and analytics, like we don't, like we don't really think of networking the same way the MBAs do. Like they're all pros at networking. But I think I hate networking with MBAs personally. No, no beef with the MBAs out there if there's an MBA listening to this, but it's like I feel like there's like the MBA like formula for networking
Yeah.
that is like pretty
Class
obvious.
on
But
it. Yeah. That's, yeah.
yeah, but I think like people in analytics need some of that personally. So yeah. But I do think it is about your network and obviously however many projects you can showcase the work that you've done.
Yeah, I was trying to find, so as you're talking, because I was reading the comments of this article earlier, and someone left that exact same comment. And yes, that is exactly my same answer. That it was better, like the comment I was trying to find it while you were talking. So if I was looking off, it was like the comment was something along the lines of, it's better to be a B student with a strong network than to grind it out for A's in your college degree. Because yeah, you're totally right. It's especially in this market that
Mm-hmm.
no one cares about the grades after a certain point. Yes, there's always like some people, companies like will have a baseline, but there's you don't need to be Dean's List straight A's. It doesn't differentiate that much because yeah, the data suggests with network theory that it's you're more likely to get seen, especially in this age of AI applications, robo applications, if you can talk to somebody, or as you mentioned, yeah, and that's a skill of letting it known that you're career searching, that you're looking, that you're open to opportunities even just casual conversation. You're doing something not related to the job, but oh, that'd be a really interesting project to work on. Just like dropping those hints, right? Like they, and this would be our networking call where it's like the subtle networking, just that you're open to the opportunity or open to the idea of exploring an opportunity at that company with this person, reaching out, right, to people.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to is literally just like I don't even call it networking. Like I've rebranded it whenever I do career conversations and I'm saying like I always talk about it, think about it from the perspective of your relationship building. Because I feel like networking has this negative connotation to it now. And again, this is a tangent that we should like explore in another video. But networking has this people hate networking, like no one wants to do networking. People think it's not genuine, it's inauthentic. And so you have to think about it like relationship building. And that's another, honestly, like look at how we got connected through going to higher education. Like we have a
It's not
really strong network
people. Yeah.
of really amazing people. And I do think I was actually having this conversation with someone at work recently because, and I will be candid about this. He was like, "Yeah, your SQL sucks," and I was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I know I need to get better at SQL," and he was like, "Yeah, your SQL sucks," and I was like, "I know I need to be better," and he was like, "What didn't they didn't teach you anything in that master's?" I'm like, "They taught me so much," and then he kind of launched into because he has a master's as well from a school here in Canada. And he launched into, well, the reason why most people go into their masters, yes, like there's a little bit of the education, but when you hear about the main perks at the end of the day, it's all like you meet a great network, you meet great companies, it's the classroom, it's the experience. Like I feel like at the end of the day, when you're considering higher education, that is the piece because really every program is going to teach you basically the same
Yeah.
thing.
You
Um, but
can
when
do
you're
your own
thinking about
YouTube if you really want to. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, but if you're really thinking about the thing that's gonna set it apart, it actually is just the network. So that's what I think.
And so, and to circle back, because I know we got in this tangent of networking for
Yeah.
actual for actual resume advice, because it ties into the program. And one of the reasons that I recommend the program, and okay, I'll just say instead of like make it into a question, but people ask me, is the program worth it? And what kind of job should I apply with it? And I always spin it back to it depends on where you're looking And the benefit for at least our program, and I think a lot of master's program, is that there's some kind of capstone project that gives you at least focused or at least a chance to focus on one specific area, whatever you're interested in. So, like our program, if you've never Googled the NYU program, you do have a capstone project year long, and you can choose what kind of team you join. So, whether it's in one domain or another domain, if I want to work in like a consumer goods or marketing or nonprofits, so you can choose what kind of group to join. And this is when people ask me like, "Oh, how can I stand out as applicant?" I throw it back to them. I say, "Well, what industry do you want to work in? And if you want to pivot, this could be that opportunity to work on a team project in that different industry." Because where I'm going with this to tie it back to resume is people are looking for that really specific candidate these days. I feel every time I've seen applications when I was hiring, again, even only a year and a half ago, when I advise people on these roles that they're crafting the resume for, like you have to be almost a perfect fit. And if not a perfect fit, you need to have some kind of transferable skill from either, yeah, the domain knowledge or like the actual role. So you might be doing the exact same role in a different domain or the same domain but a different role. So you can kind of switch two ways. And a master's program could be a way to add that extra piece of, oh, I did a program, I did my master's. I learned the skills you just talked about. So I had the basic understanding of Python, but then I also gained domain knowledge in digital marketing, right? That I didn't have before.
Yeah. I think you bring up something really interesting. I remember when I started my career and when I was first looking for jobs, I feel like there was more of a mentality back then of it's okay if they don't have every single bullet point in the job description because we can train them as long as they're a right fit.
Mm.
And now it feels very different to that. It feels like you need to have every single bullet point on that job description to even be considered for the role. And so that is really tough. It's really tough to have every single one of those points. And so there's so many tools out there to help you with like resume prep and job prep. But the biggest thing I think is, yeah, literally like looking at even when you're thinking about the master's, the right program for you, the right capstone project. And this is something I wish I did before that I didn't do is look at the actual job descriptions of people who are in these types of roles and make sure that you build your program experience around that. And again, I did not do this and I wish I had. So this is a regret I now have. But what's great about the program that you and I went into is that you can very much, it's like you get out of it what you put into it, which is so cliche. But we have access to these insane professors. I mean, we went to NYU, like they're the best in their field, and you could see that. And I think if I, like, knowing now what I know about where I want my career to go, I think I had, would have managed the relationships with the professors a little bit differently, would
Yep.
have managed my capstone project a little differently. The type, well, I made great friends, so like no notes there. But like just like, how what I put into the program, I do think that I'm very happy with my experience, but I think it probably could have been tweaked a little bit knowing now what I know about like what is the right data role for me and what is the right career for me. Because like really like the kind of roles that you can go into, like when you look at our fellow graduates and our peers, like we are doing everything. Like there are
Yeah.
founders, there are consultants, there are people working in education, engineering, technology, like it's healthcare, like it's all over the board. You should have that idea going into the program, how you want to be after the program so you can like tailor it a little bit better. So
But I w-
that's my thoughts.
but I will say I had the exact same experience as you though. So I wasn't necessarily wrong, right? So for me too, I went into the program with kind of one idea in mind. I was currently in, again, these things change in a year. I was currently in an HR role and I thought I wanted to do HR data. It just made sense. That's
Mm,
kind of why I joined. And then, you talked about, as you kind of got through the program and understood the data more. So the way why I'm bringing this up in the framing to throw it back is, okay, so to tell my story, yes, I thought I went to one thing as I learned, I guess, more about the opportunities besides just the narrow niche that I was looking at. I thought, okay, this is the business plus data. I'm already on the kind of the business side. I got away from the tech side, so I want to bring those two together and stay in my kind of domain. but it changed. And then I went, okay, maybe, more in the visualization side is going to give me more long-term fulfillment. But, as what you just said, like yeah, I probably should have prepared or even thought through it more, even though, yeah, I didn't decide to go to NYU on a whim. It's definitely a large financial and
Yeah,
time.
you definitely think about it a lot, but I was kind of like, oh, like I'm doing so much data stuff at work. I should learn more about this fun topic. It feels like it's really going somewhere. And like now on the other side of it, we came out of our masters and then now I'm looking at job descriptions and it's like 5 years of SQL. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know that I really focused on that as much. And that's always my piece of contention is my SQL skills.
But
So
would you do it again though? So knowing what you do now, would you do it again? Like would
I
you
would supplement it
would
more.
okay, would 2022 Patricia still go to NYU for MSBA?
Well, NYU is my dream school.
Okay.
I have been dreaming about NYU my entire like
Would you have
life.
gone through data or do you think you would have shown me more strict data science, like pure technical? Because we already kind of
Mm.
know, like, no MBA. You don't want to do MBA, but would you have gone even more technical or like SQL? Would you have gone full on like a computer science or like a database kind of role?
I think I'd still go through this program because I had such a great experience in it, but I think I would have, for example, like we only did 1 day of SQL in this program, right?
Okay.
Like I would have like supplemented more of my free time on the sequel as opposed to I think I spent a lot of time on like the R aspect of things because I was like, oh, this seems like I just liked it better, and so I focused on that. And we did talk about it. Like we talked about it through the program, like, oh yeah, like I should focus on Python and SQL. And like we were having these conversations, but I didn't take them seriously. And so I feel like now I'm like, oh man, I really do need to build this up a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's where I am now. But I think I would still absolutely go for it because I learned a lot, not only from the professors, but again, I do feel really lucky that we had a very strong cohort where I learned a lot from my peers.
Yeah. I think having that broad exposure, and this is one of those things where I'm slightly older than you, but having, that broad exposure in hindsight could pay off later, right? Like there's those things where, oh, I know something from, 5, 10 years ago, and then you can talk about it, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like maybe in 5 years, you're going to pick up an R role, right? You might have a role that needs R, and you've already at least have a baseline. So it's something you could talk about it. You don't know where your next role is, and if, pure hardcore statistics is going to be important to know, the p values and the t test values of this. At
Yeah.
least you'll be able to speak to that. You'll have at least the baseline knowledge. So yeah, yeah. So I do think that definitely from answer my own question, yes, that I think it's worth it because while I didn't specialize because I even shifted, but having that broad exposure, I think yeah, that's why you can't ever get rid of student loan debt, right? Because that education stays with you, right? You're going to be able to
Yes.
take that away and I think maybe apply it in who knows where, 5 years, 3 years from now, even possibly.
And I think that's another thing to think about when you do a master's program is I think because this is how the way it is with MBAs. When you do an MBA, it's like you get a job right away and it's like an insane job and I think there's a lot of expectation on that. But I think when you get a master's, I think it's a little different, especially because ours was so like we covered so many topics. Like I do think that it takes a little bit longer to see that the changes come from that or to see your career change from that because you need that time to implement all of this like niche knowledge that you've picked up. And so that's another thing to kind of think of when it comes to like what you expect out of the masters. But I do think it really is worth it because what the biggest change that I noticed for myself was just the way that I could speak to certain topics and the confidence that I had in rooms. Like the kind of work that I do in just the space that I'm in, I'm so often in rooms where like I feel very young and I feel very inexperienced, but I still feel like no, I'm super smart and I can say whatever I need to and I tend to say it very confidently and a lot of the times people kind of just look at me and then they look away, but then I'll be like, "No, no, no, like you guys need to listen to me." And then in
Yeah.
the end I end up being right and I feel like going through this experience has kind of also built that up in me, which has been really great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's the whole experience. Yeah, presentation skills, even though yeah, that wasn't the course, but yeah, learning confident how to speak In front, we gave these presentations all the time, our capstone. Yeah, these like intangible life skills that are, yeah, without doubt, a reason for any masters, right? Where you're talking more higher level as opposed to undergrad, you don't really present that much, but I think a
Not
master's
really.
is worth it, especially in, as I mentioned earlier, the degree arms race. It's almost, yeah, well, as you move up in the company. So maybe not so important if you're like 21, 22, fresh out of school, maybe get that little try in this market, get a
Yes.
little experience first. But yeah, once you have some experience on your belt, yeah, being able to speak as you do yourself, yeah, being able to speak more confidently at the executive level, that's right, what masters should be for.
I feel like we should caveat that as well. Like if you're 21, 22, 23, just out of school, go get work experience first. Because I think our cohort was a little bit more experienced, so I really feel like the conversations we had were very rich. Versus I know that I would not be able to bring that type of perspective to a master's if I was little earlier on in my career.
Right.
And so I do think it's nicer to have a little bit more time
Mhm.
and then you go pursue this because then now you can like bolster the experience that you've had with this
I
education.
think you'll get more out of the program if you
Yeah.
have more context, right? Like, yeah, having a little more experience. To our topic earlier of why did we do it or what path do we choose, you won't really know until you've experienced the world, worked a little bit, and understand, kind of what's out there, what you maybe like or don't like. Yeah, maybe don't use the masters to figure out exactly what you like or don't like, but like we did, at least have a general direction, right? That why this could be a good fit for you, choosing the MSBA, business analytics and AI over a traditional MBA or any the other myriad of master's programs out there.
Yeah. 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 This is good. I don't have anything else to add
No,
or
yeah,
any
I
more
think it's
questions for
this is
you.
a good discussion on just back to the topic. It was long-term employment, college, what's changing, what's the current landscape. That yes, it's rough. You do need to get creative, you know, but a master's, as long as you have some kind of direction, I think it can help. I think college. My final thoughts on the matter is that college degree is still worth it, not just because I work in academia, but I think it's a way to differentiate yourself. I think it's a good long-term investment, especially, yeah, the younger you get it, the more value you're going to get out of it. Yeah, I kind of wish I went to master's at your age, that I'd have even 10 more years of master's experience when I am now. But of course, everyone's life experience is different. Not that my choices were bad, but I have that with you for longer. And yeah, as you mentioned, the people that we meet in our cohort from past cohorts, they've gone on, they were in the program 10 years ago, and now they've had 10 years of, the masters under the belt, plus all the job growth, on the job learnings and training since then.
Yep. And same, like I just to add on to that with my final thoughts, like I do think that a master's just opens your world not only in terms of your network, like we mentioned, but the way that you think about problems, the way that you approach problems, the way that you can speak to them. And that is so worth it to be able to bring that to the table. I think experience is great. And again, I think that what we've both come up to is that experience and masters go hand in hand. You need some of that experience, and then having that educational aspect really can take you to the next level. And yes, the market sucks right now and it's tough, but you know what? It's a pendulum
Yeah.
and it's always swinging. So right now, it's kind of swung downward, but I think when it swings back upward, I think it'll be good
Set
to
up for
be that
success.
person that has, that higher education. So think about it that way too.
Yeah, yeah. Even though the articles, like I'm looking back at the article, like doom and gloom for these couple years, but if you can weather the storm and come out the other end, maybe a degree will help you weather it a little bit. But if you can get out, hopefully 3 or 4 years from now, once we're on the upside of this, yeah, I think you'll be in a much better place and be able to, yeah, position yourself strongly ahead of others in the market.
So I guess like let us know what you think. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? There's always so many opinions out there. It's always hard to figure out what the right thing to do is. And there is no right thing to do. You just do a thing and then you figure it out. I feel like
Right, yeah.
that's how I navigate my life.
Yeah. Keep the momentum forward. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, this is
All right.
great. See you next
Thanks for watching.
time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.